Nayun was a little embarrassed to say that. Hajin then confusedly asked, "What's wrong?" Nayun hesitated for a moment. She then said, her team's presentation was about the Mantis Dungeon Hongchen. She just wanted to ask if he knew anything about it. Hearing that, with a look like looking at a fool, Hajin then asked her, "How come you even chose the hardest dungeon of all?" Nayun said that she had to. That annoying mage from their group insisted that they had to choose it. He convinced them and said that they could rely on him. Nayun could only agree at that moment. Hearing that, Hajin then thought, the mage from Chai Nayun's team, was he Junsik? If I'm not mistaken, his skills were decent, but he was always very arrogant and rude, because his family was quite rich. He didn't feel inferior even in front of Chai Nayun. Hajin then thought that he would only tell her the necessary information then. He then said that he thought they would get bonus points because the dungeon was much more difficult. He asked, "Did he do the presentation too?" Nayun replied yes, because he insisted. "Why do you ask?" Hearing that, with a face like a shaman, Hajin then told her to leave the presentation to the other members. The look on his face showed that he was someone who liked to be tough, but he might freeze up during the presentation. If she let someone like him excel, then Cube and the entire public would collapse and their results would be a total mess. Nayun seemed to have an epiphany after hearing that. She then said that she also thought so. She was going to just let it go, but Nayun then told him all her complaints all this time. Nayun angrily said that she had never seen anyone who did whatever they wanted even more than her. Hearing that, Hajin then mocked her, "So you realize that you like to do whatever you want?" He suggested, "What if Hazuki did the presentation?" She seemed to be able to do it smoothly. Nayun said that she wanted to do it too, but she was not sure Junsik would agree. Nayun was confused about what to do, but they both then realized something. Are we close enough to be able to chat like this? The atmosphere between the two of them suddenly turned awkward as they both thought about it. Nayun then said, instead of that, she asked him to be careful during practice and said goodbye to him. Hajin understood. He said that he would finish his load set, and their dizzying class finally began. Representatives from each team then came forward one by one to make presentations, and now it was the turn of Chai Nayun's team represented by Junsik to come forward, but he seemed unable to make the presentation smoothly. He looked very nervous and stuttered when presenting their inventions. The cadets who saw it were wondering, "What's he doing?" Hajin also thought that it was really a pathetic presentation. While glancing at Nayun who was now burning with anger, Hajin thought, in the end they couldn't change the presenter. After finally finishing his presentation, while rubbing the back of his head, Junsik then apologized. He was too nervous earlier. Nayun and the other team members could only be silent hearing that. Nayun then angrily thought, seriously he said that while laughing, realizing her bad mood. Hazuki then calmed her down and asked her to forget it, but Nayun certainly wouldn't just calm down. While clenching her hands tightly, she angrily thought that she would come to him later after class, but her attention was soon distracted when the teacher asked the next team to come forward. The team that came forward next turned out to be Hajin's team, but she then could only gape. She was very surprised to see Hajin wearing glasses. After arriving at the podium, Hajin then said he would start his presentation. He explained, their team was responsible for the Wazin dungeon. It was a real dungeon located at the foot of the Sirak Mountains. Hajin then clearly described their findings related to the dungeon. Nayun could only be surprised to see that. She was amazed to see Hajin could be so smooth in his presentation. Nervousness did not show in his tone at all. It flowed naturally. The teacher then interrupted his explanation for a moment. He said that he had a question. How can he estimate the opposing mana current with only that little amount of information? Hajin smiled at that. He then answered, it can be explained by this formula. The cadets were then equally amazed at his presentation. They were amazed to see him so fluent in his presentation. They knew he was smart, but they did not expect that he was also good at presenting. It was very unexpected. They also felt that he looked a bit cool too. Nayun also blushed when she saw him at this time. She seemed to be fascinated by him. After a while, Hajin then ended his presentation. After returning to his team, he then high-fived with Rachel. Rachel praised his good work. Nayun was silent for a moment seeing that. Seeing Rachel talking so close to Hajin, she could only frown. In the gym auditorium, Rachel had just finished her daily training there. With this, today's schedule was all finished. The presentation ended well, and tomorrow was the weekend. Besides that, she had also given Hajin the contract. They were going home together after finishing their classes. They chatted casually, talking about the things that had been happening recently. The other members suggested to have a party. Hajin then asked, would she not attend the celebration party? Rachel replied no, she had some training schedules. Hearing that, Hajin then said he would go first. Then Rachel understood. She then said goodbye to him. But she then remembered something. She then immediately took something out of her bag. Hajin could only feel confused at that, while handing some kind of document to him. Rachel asked him to take it. Hajin was confused by that. While taking the document, he then asked, what is this? Rachel replied, the Royal Family Guild's preliminary contract. Hajin was then surprised to hear that. Rachel said that this one has much better terms than what he got before. In fact, she was the one who asked them to approach him, but it seems that they misunderstood a bit after seeing his rank. Hajin didn't know what to say to that. Amidst the breeze and the sunlight of afternoon, Rachel then said to him, so, I want you to carefully consider our proposal once again. After recalling that, Rachel felt happy. She felt that she had done well. While humming a song, Rachel then headed to the changing room. She would immediately change clothes, return to the dormitory, and sleep, but, just as she was about to enter the changing room, she suddenly heard the gossip of some people inside. They were gossiping about the rumors about her that have been circulating lately, rumors that Kim Hajin likes he. They sounded incredulous when they heard that. They wondered, is it really okay for him to do that? The person who told the story said yes. She heard that he had even confessed his love to Rachel. Rachel was stunned to hear that. Her face then turned red from blushing when she heard that Hajin liked her. Rachel really couldn't believe what she just heard. She didn't expect Hajin to like her, but more importantly, where did they find out? They said that Hajin did look a little suspicious. Lately she kept following Rachel. Rachel then felt annoyed to hear them talking bad about Hajin. She resentfully thought, it's because they're on the same team. How dare they spread such nonsense? Since they're a team, of course he should be around her. But, as she recalled Hajin always protecting her, and his statement saying that he's her fan, Rachel suddenly felt doubtful. They kept gossiping. They felt doubtful. Even so, isn't their status so different? Rachel was silent for a moment hearing that, and as Rachel walked backwards, she suddenly bumped into someone, and when she looked back, the person then complained to her. That person turned out to be Nayun. She was now with Yona. Nayun then asked, what are you doing? Rachel anxiously said, it's nothing. Nayun could only feel confused. Hearing that, she then irritably told her to lift her foot that stepped on her. Rachel finally realized it. She then immediately lifted it and apologized to her. Looking at Nayun who was about to enter the dressing room, Rachel then realized something. If she entered the dressing room now, then, after the two of them finally entered the dressing room, the gossipers then told the rumors that had been circulating lately to them. Rachel immediately panicked hearing that. She was confused about what she should do. If the ridiculous rumors continued to circulate, she was scared. And just as the gossipers were about to tell something about Hajin to the two of them, Rachel suddenly walked in at this moment. Their attention was immediately distracted and shockedly turned towards her. Seeing her, the gossipers then frantically wondered, did she hear us? They were feeling anxious at this moment. They then immediately said they would leave first. Nayun was then surprised and confused to hear that. She told them to finish their talk first. She asked, what was wrong with Hajin? But, they seemed not to listen and just ran away from there. Nayun could only feel confused seeing that, while Rachel herself sighed in relief seeing that. She was grateful for having succeeded in preventing the rumors from continuing to circulate. Yona seemed to realize something after seeing her behavior. While Nayun herself was dead curious at the moment, she was very annoyed that they did not finish their talk. Yona suddenly asked Rachel at this time, come to think of it, you are on the same team as that person, right? Rachel was then confused about what she meant by that person. Nayun said, Hajin. While pointing towards Yona, Nayun said, for some reason, she couldn't say his name. Yona then felt embarrassed to hear that. She then immediately said, who said, I can do it. She told her not to talk nonsense. Yona then asked her, how does it feel? Rachel was then confused by that. She didn't know what she meant. Yona chuckled at that. She then asked her, are you acting as if you don't know? The Royal Family Guild has contacted him, right? Rachel was then surprised to hear that. Yona said that everyone already knows it. Who would have thought that a valuable Prilum contract would be used on a 334th rank cadet? It doesn't make sense unless the Royal Family Guild has gone crazy. She could understand if it was the work of someone who saw what he was hiding. The environment suddenly fell silent for a moment after Yona said that. Nayun was really confused at the moment. She then asked, "What are you talking about?" While shaking her head, Rachel said that she didn't understand what she meant. Even so, they had the right to contact him based on the agreement. Hearing that, Yona then laughed. She said that she was just joking. She advised her not to use that right arbitrarily. "It's not good to make enemies out of the people around you, right?" Rachel clenched her fists tightly. Hearing that, she knew that Yona was giving her a warning. She probably wanted to tell her that she was the one who wanted Hajin, and told her not to cross the line. She really didn't need to keep Hajin if he rejected them. Seeing her silence, Yona felt that she might back down with this warning. She then told her, it was fate that they were in this situation. She then invited her to eat in her room before she went home. Rachel accepted her invitation. Yona gasped at that. Rachel didn't know why, but she didn't want to lose to her now. After the three of them sat together, the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. No one said anything to start the current conversation. Nayun, who was stuck between the two of them, could only feel confused at the moment. She didn't understand why the situation between them was tense. They were talking about things that only they understood. While looking towards Rachel, Yona then thought she offered it just as a formality. She didn't expect her to accept it. She was confused. What was she thinking? After hesitating for a moment, she then asked if she wanted to drink juice, but Rachel replied no, and the atmosphere turned silent again. After that, Yona could only feel annoyed at her answer. She then stood up from her chair and went to the table next to her. While pouring the juice on the table into a glass, Yona then asked her, "How did you come to know about him?" Rachel was confused about what to say at this time. There was no way she could tell her the truth. She then just said that she only knew him naturally, but Yona certainly wouldn't believe that. Yona continued, "If so, do you also know why he hid his true self?" Rachel gasped to hear that. She could only remain silent. She didn't know what to say at the moment. Seeing that, Yona then smiled and said, "I guess you don't know her. It is indeed information that is hard to find." Nayun was really confused as she listened to their conversation. She didn't understand what he was hiding. Rachel didn't evade. She really didn't know anything about Hajin's past, and also the reason why he hid his power. However, she then said, nothing would change even if she didn't know that information. Hearing that, while shrugging her shoulders, Yona then said, "Why wouldn't anything change? Many things would change. Essence of the Strait is much stronger regarding information gathering than most guilds in this country." But before Yona finished her words, Rachel suddenly interrupted her. She said that wasn't what she meant. She believed she would be favored if she waited for him to tell her by himself. At least it was better than investigating and finding the information by yourself. Her words seemed to have successfully triggered Yona. She then could only remain silent. Rachel said that it was getting late. She would leave now. As she walked past her, she thanked her for inviting her to dinner. Yona could only be silent watching her exit the room. The environment suddenly turned silent at this time. Feeling annoyed, Nayun then asked her, why were the two of them talking about things that she didn't understand at all? She told her to speak in Korean. Nayun's words really didn't make sense, because the two of them had been speaking in Korean. At the Carrot Cafe, Tomer was hanging out with her two friends at the moment. Her friend then enthusiastically gossiped something to her. "Did you know, Hajin likes Rachel?" Tomer then pretended to be surprised to hear that. Her friend continued, "She thinks she hasn't heard the rumor because she came from outside, but recently Cube has been buzzing because of the rumors." Tomer said that she didn't know that. She was of course lying, because she was the one who had spread the rumors. Her friend, who was a little quiet, then said, "Lately they have been together a lot. But isn't that because they are on the same team?" Tomer gasped hearing that. Her friend continued, "And, once Rachel graduates from Cube, she will become the captain of the Royal Guild. It could be that she was just adding to the relationship from the beginning." Hearing that, her friend said that it sounded reasonable. Hajin's rank increased to 334 recently, so he deserves to be in the Royal Family Guild, which is ranked 60th in the world. Tomer was then anxious to hear that. She was confused. It shouldn't be like this. Her plan was to familiarize herself with some Cube cadets, then lead them to spread the rumor. That way, Rachel would distance herself from Hajin because of the rumor, but she was feeling anxious at this time. Don't let the rumors disappear. When the two of them had started to think positively, Tomer then quickly said, "But isn't the saying that there's no smoke if there's no fire?" But they already didn't feel interested at the moment. Seeing that, Tomer anxiously thought that she had to make them interested again with the rumors. She then said, before she saw Hajin looking at Rachel, his eyes looked very soulful. Tomer posed so exaggeratedly when saying that to them, she herself even felt that this was a little excessive, but it unexpectedly made them feel interested. Tomer did not expect them to believe her nonsense so easily. It was because they were at an age where they were very interested in other people's relationships. Her friend then enthusiastically said that she had expected it. She asked, was there anything else? Tomer then thought hard about what other stories she could bring to them. She then said, when she and her team went to the cafe earlier, but what she didn't realize was, her smartwatch was secretly active at this time. Her smartwatch was being hacked at this time. The hacker then logged into her messenger and read one of the messages sent to her. Tomer, next Wednesday in class, take the item, it will help you in your mission. He felt interested to read that. The hacker turned out to be Hajin. He had guessed that Tomer came to Cube for another reason. Last night, he met Tomer at the convenience store. Tomer greeted him when they happened to cross paths. As the two of them chatted, Hajin thought, it feels like he is meeting her more and more often these days. But then he was surprised when he saw the watch Tomer was wearing. He felt something strange about the watch. After he hacked it, Hajin then realized, the watch was indeed fake. It looked like the real thing, but it couldn't deceive his eyes. As Hajin scrolled through her messenger, she then saw the details of the mission carried out by Tomer. Reading that, Hajin thought, it seems that Tomer was indeed targeting Rachel, even though he had to use ADSP so that she wouldn't realize that she was being hacked. But he got good information. Tomer wouldn't think that she had leaked the information. Hajin then felt happy when Tomer got a new message. Wednesday's class is mock Relic War. There is a management center on the lowest floor in the underground area of B3. The item has been placed there, at 11 p.m., the management center. Reading that, Hajin pondered for a moment. There is not much time left. He must move quickly, but he was then surprised when he suddenly got a message at this time, and when he checked it, he was quite confused because it was a picture message. He wondered, who was it from? After he opened it, he wondered, was it from Rachel? She sent him a picture with a long text and asked, could he teach her how to do it? But after he read the sender's name, it wasn't her. She was struggling with the problem in front of her right now. Her mind was really stuck and didn't know what to write to answer the problem. The person who could be so stupid was certainly Chai Nayan. She was really dizzy at the moment. She didn't understand what it meant at all. She had studied the notebook, but she couldn't solve a single one. This damn phenomenon 2 analysis kept talking about calculations, but she didn't understand it at all. She seemed to be in the library at the moment. Rachel was seen sitting not far from her. She was also studying the same as it seemed. Looking at Rachel, who repeatedly checked her smartwatch, she seemed to be immersed in her thoughts at the moment. Nayan felt that this seemed to be difficult for her too. When thinking back about the dizzying problem, Nayan could only sigh in frustration. She also thought, this must be an easy problem for Hajin. Nayan then thought of something when she remembered about him. She then planned to ask Hajin for help in doing the problem. She repeatedly wrote the message that she would send to him. But she also repeatedly deleted it because either she felt the message was impolite or she felt like an idiot in the message, until finally she found the right sentence. Can you teach me how to do it? After Nayan sent the message to him, she then arrogantly thought, she almost finished it. She asked him just in case she was wrong, but after 20 minutes, she didn't get a reply from Hajin. Nayan irritably wondered, did he ignore her message? She felt annoyed at this moment. Did he think he was the only one she could ask for help? And just as Nayan was about to leave there, a message notification suddenly rang from her smartwatch. Nayan blushed at this moment. She knew who was sending her a message at this moment. While giggling, Nayan then put her bag back and sat back there. The reason why Hajin took 20 minutes to reply to her message was, because it was quite time-consuming for him to write an answer that could make Nayan understand it. He realized how stupid she was. Hajin smiled slightly. She works hard in everything she does. She was also like this in the previous presentation. In the future, she will be a better hero than her own brother. But Hajin then remembered something important when he thought of Nayan's brother again. He forgot because he was used to life here, Chai Jin-yoon, even though he was in a coma due to being a demon seed, but he would then become a demon after the incubation period was over. There weren't many heroes strong enough to defeat him. No one knew how long it would take Chai Jin-yoon to wake up from his sleep, so, before that happened, Hajin clenched his hands tightly at the thought. But the problem was, only he knew the reason for Chai Jin-yoon's current condition. That meant he couldn't ask for any help. It was difficult for him to approach him alone, unless he was in disguise. But He then remembered something. He then took out the business card that the boss gave him at that time. At that time, after the boss saved him from the wrath of a djinn, she then approached him and invited him to join them. She also gave him some kind of invitation card. Hajin was quite surprised when he saw the invitation card. It was an invitation to join the Geronimo mercenary. Geronimo mercenary. It was one of the top-level mercenaries that existed today. However, it was actually just a disguise for the chameleon troupe. He didn't know why they chose to recruit him instead of Shin Jonghak. I don't know how far the storyline would change with this. If he got help from them, it was possible for him to kill Chai Jin-yoon, without anyone realizing it. Hajin was silent for a moment when he came to that conclusion, but he then gasped when someone suddenly called him. It was Evangel. While rubbing her eyes, Evangel then asked, "You haven't slept yet?" Hajin apologized to her. He asked, "I made you wake up because the lights were still on." Evangel answered yes. Hajin then carried Evangel's small body and invited her to continue sleeping. Hajin thought that he had to slow down. If the incubation period of the seedlings was about 5 to 6 years, then he still had 1 year left from now. He was sure there was a way to solve this. Hajin then secretly glanced at the invitation card that the boss gave him. He then seemed to know where he was going next. The next day, Kim Soo-hyuk then gathered all the cadets in a room. He explained, "So, you all may already know it, but today's practical training will be mock relic war." The cadets looked very enthusiastic to hear that, while some of them were not happy, because they did not want their rank to drop because of this. Hajin himself looked normal to hear that. He thought, for Relic, usually the country that found it will be the owner, but there are many countries destroyed by outcall in this world, so, in the current situation, the relic found in the empty land belongs to the finder. In order to get the relic, the guilds and even the jinn will fight each other. It is known as relic war. In other words, Hajin knows. This is a training for them to experience what a real relic war is like. Kim Soo-hyuk continued. The size of the relic excavation site is extremely large. The theme itself is melee. The command hierarchy, the method to contact other team members, and the location of the relic is unknown. They must choose a wise decision at every moment. During the training, the white team will be in charge of defense, and the black team will be in charge of attack. When the instructors judged that they had received severe injuries, or if they shouted "I surrender," then they would be disqualified. After explaining at length to them, Kim Soo-hyuk then snapped his fingers. Hajin was then shocked when a veil suddenly covered both eyes. Not only him. The other cadets also experienced the same situation as him. They frantically wondered, "What is this?" They couldn't see anything at all. Seeing the panic of the cadets, Kim Soo-hyuk then told them to calm down. He explained, "It's my mana, so you don't need to panic. I blindfolded you so that we can place you into different locations randomly. We will move now." Hearing that, the cadets then walked behind him. The scene was very chaotic, because the cadets could not see at this time. It made them push each other and accidentally step on other people's feet. Hajin himself was in the middle of them. He then thought, he guessed it is not surprising for a high intermediate hero to be able to blindfold this many cadets. Even so, with the 1,000 miles eyes he has, this does not affect him at all. When one talks about a relic excavation site, people will usually imagine about ruins, but the latest cutting-edge technology used makes it more like an underground bunker. Because there are many people with extraordinary talents in the world, Hajin then looked around to check the details of his opponent. On the first floor of the basement, the number of people stationed here is about 15 cadets. Second floor of the basement, there were 25 cadets. Chai Nahyun was on the third floor of the basement. Rachel was also there, and 15 other cadets. Realizing that, Hajin felt that there would be a big fight between the two of them. Hajin then took a step forward. As for himself, he was on the fourth floor of the basement. Looking at his clothes which had now turned black, Hajin realized that he was on the black team. He actually wanted to find out where Shin Jonghak and Kim Soo-ho were, but it couldn't be helped. Looking at the room he was in, Hajin wondered, was this part of the residence? But he was then surprised when he looked in a direction. Seeing the person in the room next to him, he didn't expect it. Right at that moment, Kim Soo-hyuk then announced, the location of all cadets had been determined. The relic could be guarded by NPCs or moved to various places. The white team must guard the relic, while the black team must steal it. The countdown will start now. After the cadets were placed in each room, the doors separating each room then closed. After that, Kim Soo-hyuk then told them to prepare and start the countdown. After the practical training finally began, Hajin then prepared his gun. The veil covering the cadet's eyes had been removed at this time. While reading back the message sent by the agent to Tomer, Hajin then thought the relic that Tomer was supposed to take was in Area B3 on the lowest floor. The lowest floor, that means the 7th floor of the basement, but this became a little complicated. Yuna was in the next room, and she was on the white team, which meant she would be his enemy in this practical training. In order to get to the corridor from there, he would definitely run into her, without knowing who she would be dealing with. Yuna then said, "I know there are people there, I heard everything." She asked, "Which team are you on?" "I'm the white team." Seeing no answer from him, Yuna then believed he must be from the black team. While opening the door that separated the two of them, Yuna said that she felt sorry for him for having to experience this when the practice had just started. After the door finally opened, Yona told him to just think he was unlucky, but she was then stunned when she finally saw someone she was going to fight. She didn't expect it to be Hajin. The atmosphere suddenly became silent when they both fell silent. Seeing that, Hajin was confused. Why did she suddenly stop her attack? For some reason, she felt Yona looked a little tense. It was natural because Yona really looked up to him. Her attitude changed to be very alert at this time. Yona anxiously thought that this was very bad. She never thought he would be her first opponent. She then gasped when she saw Hajin suddenly raise his hand. She then nervously told him not to try to do anything strange. Hajin could only be dumbfounded at that. He really didn't know what she meant, even though he just wanted to scratch his body because it was itchy. But Yona certainly didn't know that. She was already very nervous at this time. Ho's weapon was an ordinary trainee gun, but he could fire a shot strong enough to penetrate the enhanced protection energy. She wondered, what should she do? Should she fight him, or, looking at the closed door in the narrow corridor behind her, Yona felt she was doomed. The corridor outside was very narrow, and it was a one-way corridor. No matter how she escaped, she was still within range of his gun. While tightening her grip on her whip, Yona then calmed herself down. She thought that this could be a chance for her. She had only estimated how strong he was based on her observations so far, so this was a chance for her to find out his true strength.